Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and trapped behind all these games is a nerd who's going to talk to you about a bunch of Japanese video game pickups. So, yeah, before we get into that, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that already, as well as go into the description, hit me up on all the social media stuff, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, etc. Appreciate the support and follows over there. And if you can check out my new travel channel called Flying and Eating, you can see honestly where all this stuff came from. So the last month or so, I was out and about. I was in Japan, obviously. I was also more accurately down in Guam and Saipan and Tinian, which are U.S. territories in the Pacific. So that was really the goal. And then like on the way back, you know, you kind of have to go through Japan in order to get there. I mean, I guess you can go through Hawaii, but you don't have to. It's better to go through Japan. And since I was coming back through Japan, I thought, okay, stay in Japan for, you know, like a week or so. So naturally, because it's me and it's Japan, I got a bunch of stuff. Now, to be clear, this isn't like all the pickups I did back in, you know, like a few months ago when I went to Japan for like a couple of weeks where the goal was just get stuff. This was like, hey, I'm there, even though I realized this is a lot of stuff. It could have been worse. So this is like everything we picked up from every store. So like, the first section here is some miscellaneous. This is the hard off section, and then this is like Surigaya specialty shop section. So we'll talk about it, but yeah, this is it. There's no surprises like hidden off the side or anything like that. So yeah, everything's right here. Some of which you can see very plainly. So yeah, that's really the kind of setup here. So let's just go ahead and start talking about random pickups now. A couple of things to mention, I guess, before that actually, is to note the yen is still down, so the exchange rate is still pretty nice. I mean, it was better on the first trip. Now it's like 130 yen to a dollar about the time when I was there on this trip. When I got there last time, it was like 150 yen to a dollar, but it started to recover as I was leaving. Basically, all that means is stuff was like generally 20-30% cheaper than it normally would be. Plus, in most of the cases here, I didn't have to pay the sales tax, which is 10%. So, yeah, nice chunk of savings. So let's start off here and just go from there. The first thing we got is some donations. The first thing up actually was given to me by a guy named Oliver. He's a member in my Discord. We've been communicating through Twitter for a few years. He's a fascinating guy. He's an American who lives in Japan. I think he's technically also Canadian, and he covers North Korea as a career. So just, you know, interesting guy. And he lives down in the Kansai area, Kyoto specifically. And I was coming in from Guam, so I came up, I landed in Nagoya, which is like halfway between the Kansai area and the Tokyo area. So he came up to Nagoya, I went to Nagoya, and our buddy Sunshine, who was another member in my Discord, came down from Tokyo, so we just kind of met up there. That whole thing will be on the travel channel. All of this will be. But anyway, so while, you know, we were just meeting up, he just decided to give me something, which he certainly didn't have to do, but he did anyway. This is Star Wars for the Famicom by Namcot before they became Namco. So I had actually seen this game multiple times over the years, but I always kind of ignored it because I just assumed it was the Famicom version of the Star Wars game that we got on NES. I'm no expert on this, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently it's a different game, and this is actually a rarer version of the game, and this is just what he told me, where Darth Vader turns into a scorpion. I don't know, but apparently that's the thing. It's boxed, it's complete, it's in really good shape, and he just gave it to me. So that was really nice of you, Oliver. I wasn't expecting that at all. Thank you very much. So huge shout out to you, dude. If you want to chat with him, he's always in the Discord, and I actually recommend that to a lot of people if you're ever going to travel or whatever, or if you just want to hang out with people and make some friends. Discord's a really good place for that because we got people from all over the world there. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to this country, what do I do? There's people usually there who can tell you. Like, this dude doesn't live in North Korea, but he can even tell you about North Korea, which he would mostly tell you, don't go to North Korea. But either way, thank you for that. And so as I mentioned, there was a guy named Sunshine. He too gave me something that he really should not have. And his was more of a joke. So as you guys know, watching this channel, there's multiple things I'm not a fan of, as anyone out there is not a fan of certain things in life. And 3 of those things happen to be anime. Not a big fan of anime. When I say not a big fan, I mean not at all. I don't like it at all. and that always bothers people, but it's an opinion. Get over it. And then there is the Nintendo Wii. Not a fan of it. I know there's people that are, but once again, it's an opinion. Get over it. And then finally, and I don't think I'm going to get too many people, too many detractors on this one, on this channel anyway, American football, aka hand egg, because it's the stupidest sport ever created. I'm not a fan of those three things. So Sunshine found something that is one of the worst things in the universe. An anime hand egg game for the Wii. And he bought this and he gave it to me. It actually like burns my skin to touch it. It's very, very painful. I actually have no idea what this game's even called. Something 21 is all I can tell, and honestly, I don't even care. But it is a good joke. Thank you, Sunshine. But yeah. So moving on. Now we're gonna get into stuff I actually like bought on my own, right? So this first pile of stuff over here is all things that were kind of from a miscellaneous stores. The only one I remember off the top of my head was there was a store called Mandarake. I think we got like one or two things there. And there was some mom and pop places we found along the way where it's like, oh, you got one thing there, one thing there. This is all kind of just mixed together, right? The first thing up is more of a concept that needs to be explained, and then we will talk about the specifics. As you guys likely know, if you're regulars of this channel, I have a full Dreamcast set, and when I say that, I'm a huge super fan of the Dreamcast. I have the full North American set. I have the full European exclusive set. I even have the full Japanese exclusive set. I've got the full indie set. I even have most of the demo discs, although I never really pursued that. Like, I have all the American ones, I think. I have all the European ones, I think. But the Japanese ones, I always kind of... To be honest, there's not a great list of which ones even exist that I've ever found, and I've also never really pursued it because it's just so unattainable. Like in the United States, the majority of the Dreamcast demo discs came with the Dreamcast magazine. Then there was a couple of outliers like the generator discs that actually came with the consoles, and there's just a few others that just existed for like one reason or another, like the Demolition Racer no exit disc that was mailed to people at random, stuff like that. But for the most part, it was easily, accomplished. Europe, again, it was kind of a similar deal. Like they had an official Dreamcast magazine that it came with demo discs. As far as I know, that was pretty much all they got, although I could be wrong. But in Japan, it was bonkers. Like, they had multiple Dreamcast magazines, which I've never really found. They had specific demo discs for individual games. They had just tons and tons of stuff. And it's every time I go there, I'm like, okay, I didn't know that existed. Like, for example, we found this a couple times. Like, we found a Soul Calibur demo disc for Dreamcast twice. And it was like $90. And I'm like, no, I don't care. Like, I'm willing to get cheap ones. But, like, I'm not going to spend real money on a demo disc, like, unless it's something I really needed for some special reason. Like, maybe a Shenmue one or something I would debatably put up with, except I've already got those. And the craziest one we found, and I still have no idea why this was the case. I'll show a photo of it. Sonic Adventure, we found a demo disc of some sort. You can see it right here in this photo. Just so you understand what you're looking at, that price point is over $1,000 USD. Over 1,000, like closer to 1,500 for a demo disc. Now, I don't pretend to know why. I don't know the story of that demo disc. All my point is there was a bunch of insane ones that came out there. So I don't care about getting them all, but it is kind of fun to still collect something for the Dreamcast, and there's a bunch of cheap Japanese Dreamcast demo discs that, hey, why not? So that's where we start here. We got Record of Lodos War, The Advent of Cardis. This game actually did come out in the US. We didn't get a demo disc for it. The way you can tell it's a demo disc actually is on the bottom. It says not for sale. That's like the specific giveaway. That, and of course, it never really has artwork or anything to go with it. So you just kind of pay attention to that. Now, how much actual game content is on there, I don't know. But, like, it's just kind of a neat little novelty to get. But again, this is the type of thing where I'm not paying more than, like, at most 1,000 yen. Like, I'm really not going beyond that. It's just so for me, as a Dreamcast fan, it's fun to get new stuff for the Dreamcast, but I mean, obviously I already have the actual game. It's a novelty. But, I also rip these and archive them as well, because I don't know how well that's actually been done on the internet. I don't know how many people even really care about ripping those, so as I find them, I do that too. But, yeah, there we go, we got that. The next one I found, which I did not archive because it's still sealed, is for a Japanese exclusive game called Weakness Hero Taruman DC. Now, I have the actual game, again, but this is some demo disc for it. But it's sealed, so this is how they were distributed. And he's like, clear cases, sealed up. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how this happened. It's never really been presented to me as like why there are so many Japanese demo discs like this for individual games. I don't know if this was like a pre-order bonus thing. I don't know if like, hey, you're buying a different game, here's a free demo disc that goes with it. I don't know how Japan distributed these things back in the day. I'm not sure. Obviously the motivation was to try and get people to buy the other games. I get that part. But why and how exactly, you know. But whatever, that exists, so I picked that up. And we'll get it back around a Dreamcast demo disc, I assure you. But in the meantime, we also found some games for a system I quite enjoy, a system which you can, spoilers, you can kind of see right there in front of you, Neo Geo CD. So Neo Geo CD is a fun system. I think most people who actually have one think that the game library on it is pretty good. I mean, the vast majority of the games on it are pretty solid. Not every single one, obviously, but it's a small library. It's like 90 games. So I've never really set out to get like a full set of it because there's some games that are just astronomically expensive, but the vast majority of them are okay. So I've kind of made it my policy, like if I see one I don't have, it's cheap, just get it. Just don't even think about it, just get it. And that's sort of what happened here. The first one anyway. I got Top Players Golf, which I don't care much about golf, but it is one of the few sports games on the system. And I didn't have it, so it's just kind of, you just chuck it into the library and there you go. But yeah, cool to have, especially because again, you're kind of looking at a Neo Geo CD there, but we'll get back around to that in a minute. The other one I got was not cheap. I actually put down money for this, but it was for what it is, for what it usually goes for. I did fine. So here we go. Pulstar. This is actually a really good shoot 'em up for the Neo Geo CD. There are not many shoot 'em ups on the Neo Geo CD, which is part of why this one is so expensive. So yeah, it was definitely cool to get it. It's just, you know, every once in a while, if you're collecting a set of some kind and you find one of those, you know, heavy hitter ones, every once in a while it's good to just pull the trigger on that and just get it over with. Rip that Band-Aid, man. Just rip that Band-Aid. Get the pain over with. And then, you know, one day when you're around it, you're like, well, I don't have to deal with that one anymore. So that would be Pulstar. Now, this was not crazy expensive. There's ones that are like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. This was not anywhere near that. But this is one of the harder ones. So it was good to get that. Plus, my buddy Joseph, who lives in Japan, bullied me into this. He collects Neo Geo CDs. He's like, hey, you should get that. You should really get that. You know, you should totally get that. So I got it. Next up, we have to talk a little bit of Xbox. Now, if you've never heard me talk about this before, then you're in for a story. And if you have heard this before, I apologize, so I'll try to be fast about it. But yeah, we're going to talk Xbox for a second. Now, there's a common misconception in Japan that the Xbox has always been dead, it has always been irrelevant, that there are no Xbox sections there, blah, 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 blah. This is usually spoken by people who have never been to Japan and don't really know what the hell they're talking about. But the basic history with Xbox in Japan is that when the first Xbox was coming out, Microsoft put a lot of effort into trying to get into the Japanese market. I mean, they got more special edition consoles over there than like everybody else combined. Like they put a lot of work into it, special color variants, all that sort of thing, right? They even ended up with a total of 48 exclusive games for Japan only. There were 2 additional Asian region exclusives, Zillernet, which was South Korea, and then Daemon Vector, which I believe was just Taiwan. But then 48 specific for Japan. They put effort in, it just didn't really pan out. So what happens next is the 360, obviously. Now the 360 was different. Microsoft really, really wanted the 360 to work in Japan. So they came up with an idea, which was, okay, we'll design our console, but we're actually going to let Japanese engineers design the case. So that original, like, white 360 that's kind of an hourglass design, I do remember this. Like, I remember that they were saying they had designed it like an hourglass because they thought that would appeal more to the Japanese base, and they figured the West wouldn't really care, they would find it acceptable, but for the Japanese it would actually kind of be enticing for whatever reason. I don't pretend to know exactly why, other than maybe the obvious hourglass shape of a woman, but like that might be a bit of an extreme push. But regardless, I do remember they designed it that way specifically to appeal to the Japanese. Now, the console comes out in 2005, and actually, this is the part no one ever talks about, they gained significant traction. Now, this was partially on the back of the PS3 making all the same mistakes over there that it made over here, being, you know, much more expensive, the games being usually worse versions, at least for those first few years. So they found this opening, and they went for it. Microsoft in the US basically told Microsoft Japan, you handle it, this is your turf, you figure that out. So what they did was they opened it up to all these developers and said, make games for Japan. And so they did. And that's how you end up with a ton of these like weird anime games and date sim games and even some good ones like shoot 'em up games and all this sort of stuff. Idle singing games. Like there's just tons of stuff on the 360. Like we're talking potentially like 100 plus exclusive titles for the Japanese 360. It might actually be more than that. I've never really bothered to count it. But they got a ton of games over there that we never got. Now, what ends up happening is a few years into the system, I almost knocked that over, a few years into the system, I don't know if this is around the time Don Matrick came over and took over Xbox America or whatever it was, but something happened. We know that Microsoft America basically requested from Microsoft Japan, give us a presentation, show us what Xbox is in Japan, because they had been staying out of it. So then they showed them. They're like, okay, we have all these anime games and these date sim games and these idle games and these shoot 'em up games. And Microsoft in the US was like, you're telling me that these anime games is what represents the Xbox brand? Like, this says Microsoft on it. And they got like even as someone who doesn't like anime, I would never have that reaction of don't try to sell anime to the Japanese. That is a stupid reaction, but that was Microsoft's reaction. They basically said, no. The Japanese don't want anime and date sims and idle games and shoot 'em ups. They don't like that stuff. Stop all that. Put out Call of Duty. That's what the Japanese want. So they forced that on them, and then it just... and then the Xbox brand basically really tanked after that, to the point where the Xbox One... famously, really nobody bought it. It only ended up with one exclusive game ever, by the way, a game called Azito. And then the Xbox Series X, which actually is doing pretty well, but it's only doing well on the back of Game Pass. Like actual Xbox Series X, like physical titles, I don't think I noticed more than a couple of times. But the Japanese do like that console quite a bit, but just because of Game Pass. But that's a totally different story. Anyway, the point is, there's a lot of 360 exclusive content. Now, I'm not going for a full 360 set by any stretch of the imagination, but when I see some of these shoot 'em ups in particular, the cheaper ones, I'm willing to pull the trigger on because those are actually playable games. So the first one we got up here is called like Mushimi or something. Mushimi? I don't know. I'll put the name in the, I don't know. I can't read it. I'll put the name down in text there. But yeah, this is this is from Cave. It was actually pretty decent, and I believe it came out in 2012. So this was actually very, very close to the end of the 360 lifespan right there. But yeah, this is decent enough game that just never came out here. I don't know if it's in the Cave Shooter collection or not. That's like the most famous like exclusive set of games for the 360 over in Japan. But yep, got that. So that will do it for this section. And now we move on to this section. So everything here came from a store chain called Hard Off. Now, people always, if they're new to this, they always laugh at that name because it makes them think of hard on. I get it. But really, it just means hardware. It's just referring to a store that sells hardware. And then the whole off thing is like a series of different stores. I don't know if they're all under the same umbrella of corporate ownership or if they've just kind of decided to be together. I don't really know, but there's Book Off famously, but there's also Hobby Off for toys, Mode Off, House Off, Garage Off for car parts. There's even my favorite one is not Hard Off. That's funny, sure, until you hear about Liquor Off. That's way funnier. But so that's a whole thing. And I like hard offs, but I find them fascinating, and I tried to do a little more investigation into that this time. Like, why is it? Because hard offs are so common. Like, you could throw a rock, you'll hit one. There's just so many of them. And they're always filled with just seas of things. Just games. Not only games and, stuff, but just random bits of technology. Computer parts, movies. Like literally, we were finding, movie formats from, the 70s in there. Like, what is happening? Like, why do you have all this stuff still? And so a little investigation. So here's the thing about Japan that I think a lot of people don't really understand. And it's part of the reason it's so easy and so cheap to get a bunch of this Japanese stuff and why everybody imports stuff from Japan is kind of a few different factors that all culminate into a logical consequence, resulting in hard off. So the first and foremost is Japan is an engineering country. Famously, they make a lot of stuff. They used to be the world's factory, so they used to physically make all this stuff, especially in the 80s and up until the early 90s, before China took that position. They were really making all this sort of stuff, so they were constantly dumping it into their own, environment as well as everybody else's. But they are still engineers of the world. I mean, think about it. Sony and Nintendo are still in the game, and they're still Japanese companies. Microsoft obviously is not, but you get my point. Like the Japanese famously make stuff. Okay. Japan also is a small country, and famously, as a result, the living spaces are usually small. So people don't really want to keep a bunch of stuff because space has a lot of value to it. Then, at the same time, the Japanese are very fiscally conservative. So, I mean, every society doesn't like to just spend money for no reason, except for nerds like me who buy stuff like this. But, like, in general, I would say every society tries to be financially responsible. But the Japanese are kind of on a different level where, you know, some fiscal responsibility is a little bit more important. I don't know how else to phrase it. They care more about that than a lot of other societies, I think, do. But the last point that is kind of fascinating is that the Japanese punish you for throwing stuff away. They're very big into recycling. And what I mean by that is, like, they financially punish you. So, you know, if you live in the US, you live in Canada, you live in Europe, somewhere, one of the countries there, or you live down in Australia, etc. I've been to all these places. Hell, I've been to Cuba. Okay? So you go to all these countries, one thing you'll very commonly see is public trash cans. That is not a thing in Japan. And the reason for that is, in the US, for example, trash removal is done by tax dollars. Like, that's the reason, you know, we have public trash cans. It's just paid for by your state, your city, your county, your federal government, etc. Or if, you know, you live in a house and you have that public trash thing where you just take your trash out and put it on the front lawn or whatever, and then the city comes by and takes it and dumps it. The reason you don't get like a specific bill for that, that's just built into your taxes. The Japanese get specific bills, and they get them based on the weight and the amount of stuff that they throw away. In other words, it costs money to throw stuff away. That makes a lot of sense suddenly. So let's imagine you were the guy who owned this Neo Geo CD. Back in the day, you bought it because you're like, hey, you know, I'm Japanese and I like, you know, my SNK is Japanese and I want to support local and I like video games and I want to buy this thing that my country made. Okay, you did it. You had your fun with it. You kept it all nice and pristine like this because you figured one day there's a good chance you're probably going to sell it, but you keep it as nice as possible for that reason. But over time, it's no longer the new thing. You don't really want it anymore. It's big. It's huge. It's taking up so much room in my apartment. What am I going to do? I got to get rid of this thing. Well, okay, so I'm cheap. I don't want to just get rid of it. I want to get a little money back. But at the same time, if I just chuck it in my garbage can, they are going to charge me money to take this away. I'll go to Hard Off. Maybe they'll give me 20 bucks for it. It costs more to throw it away than it is to just take a pittance at a Hard Off. Hence, Hard Offs are full of stuff that just sits there forever. Because eventually, though, to be fair, Hard Offs do purge stuff where they melt stuff down. That's a depressing sight. I had a friend who told me, he's like, one of the most horrifying sights ever. He saw guys just basically melting down Famicoms. That was sad. But anyway, so that's basically why Hard Off is like that. Now, Hard Off's a mixed bag. It can be, you can find treasure, you can find nothing, you can find junk. Like, it's just kind of whatever. I'll be honest, Hard Off is not as crazy awesome as it used to be because the secret's kind of out, and it was partially my fault because I made videos on it, but a bunch of people did. It's not just me. But, like, yeah, it's kind of hard to find as much stuff there, and Hard Off kind of got wise to the fact that basically a lot of tourist gaijin are coming over there and just buying this stuff to either resell or because they realized it was too cheap. Because to them, it was just, you're getting rid of your junk. Like, this is great. We don't even care. To us, it's like, wow, I can't believe I got such a good deal on this thing that I've wanted forever. You know what I mean? So this is it. This is everything we got from Hard Off on this trip. So let's start here. This was the first thing I got, is a Dreamcast keyboard. Now, I have multiple Dreamcast keyboards, but this is kind of an interesting one because they did a bunch of them. There's like a full-size keyboard, then there's like a mini Japanese one. This is like this half one. It's like, it's in between the two sizes, which I've never seen before. And of course, it's got the Japanese keys on it, so it's not a whole lot of use, to be honest with you, but it was just kind of cool, especially in the box, and it was only like, I don't know, 500 yen or something like that. This is a perfect example of a junk item they can't wait to get rid of, because it's big, it's bulky, it has no real value, and only stupid Baka Gaijin is going to come and buy this. But I did. And then we got some games, of course. Two that we got was actually for the Nintendo DS, a system I never get stuff for. We have Game & Watch Collection, as well as Game & Watch Collection Volume 2. So Volume 1 and Volume 2. The interesting thing about these is these actually did come out in the United States. But they came out the same way they came out in Japan, which was through Club Nintendo. Now, who out there remembers Club Nintendo? If you do not, well, congratulations. You're very young and you have a long life ahead of you. But Club Nintendo was a service Nintendo used to have in which whenever you bought one of their games, inside there would be like a little like piece of paper with like a little code on it. You'd go to their website, log into your account or create an account first, whatever, and then put in this code and you would just get points. And when you got enough points, you could use them to redeem stuff for free that they would just mail to you. Now, Nintendo famously released a few oddball exclusive things on those websites. This would be an example of it, was these two games. Now, these are... The American ones are much more expensive. The Japanese ones are kind of cheap, probably because the Japanese don't value that stuff. I should have said this as well before. The Japanese don't even really have a retro gaming scene. They don't really value having this stuff around. Like I said, it just pops back into the stores for different reasons. So the guy who would have held on to this only hold on to it to be able to sell it, not because he was like, oh man, I love Neo Geo CD. Finding a Japanese that's super into retro games, really uncommon. But anyway, that would be partially to explain why this is the case as well. Is like whoever bought these back in the day when it was new or bought, through Club Nintendo was like, oh, that's cool. And now it's like, oh, they have some value. Yeah, let's just get rid of that. These take up space. So yeah, I got those. They were pretty cheap actually, which was very nice because I was never realistically going to own the American ones. And honestly, these are not particularly complex games, so that's cool. Few random assorted discs here, most of which were pulled out from junk bins with, I think, one exception. First up is the PS2 Utility Disc, version 1.01. This is kind of funny. I've actually alluded to this for years on this channel. I've talked about this kind of briefly. So what this is back in the day, Sony decided they wanted to have the ability to update the PlayStation 2 should they ever need to for any reason. But it's not like updates today where the system would connect online and then it would download its updates and store it on some sort of internal memory. Back in the day, that wasn't really viable. The internet just wasn't quite there, and there was no really internal storage system on the PlayStation 2, at least not standard. Like those hard drives, they technically made them, but like nobody really bought it and it wasn't built into the console, so it couldn't be like, hey, you need the hard drive to do the system update. The only thing they could kind of trust was that they might be able to store updates in the memory card slot. So they built that for the purpose of being able to update it, and ultimately what mostly came of that was the Free McBoot exploit. That's why that works, is because Sony gave it the ability to update through memory cards. As long as the memory card was plugged in, the update would save. So basically Free McBoot just kind of tricks the system into thinking it's an official Sony update. But Sony barely ever used that feature. But as far as I know, the one time they ever did was actually this disc. Now, there is an American version of this, which I believe I have somewhere. But the Japanese version, all this really did, to my recollection, is that it made some minor updates to the DVD playback. Like, nothing special. Like, all you would do is run this disc. If it had a memory card in there, it would basically run this little firmware update, and then it'd reboot, and that's it. It would just say, like, oh, your system has been updated, and then it would say the new dashboard number. But if you turned off the system, took the memory card out, it would be back to the stock version. Just kind of strange little oddity of PlayStation 2 history. That's really the only reason I got that. Not that I need to update the DVD player on the PS2. I think we're kind of past that point of that mattering. Another PlayStation demo disc I found. This is a demo disc. Okay, so it's not another one of those not for sale or not for resale type of discs. And it was just sitting there in the junk bin. It's a sealed disc, and this was like 100 yen. It's like 80 cents. The same with this. This was like 80 cents, and I was just like, it's probably not worth anything, but to me it was really cool. Clock Tower Ghost Head. Do you guys remember Clock Tower? Those games? Those are really expensive games, like the actual PS1 games, at least the American versions are. But in Japan, it got some sort of demo disc here. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. And again, this one's sealed up. I didn't even, like the original sticker's still on it. So I'm not going to open it. There's no reason to. But yeah, for 80 cents, basically, I thought that would be a cool little display piece. This one is neat. This one's neat for historical reasons, because I did not know this story, and I'm betting a lot of you don't either. This is the only Sega Saturn game I picked up on this whole trip. This is a game called Willy Wombat. Now, I saw this multiple times, and usually when that happens to me, I'm like, okay, that's a sign, because usually I never really see this game. And then all of a sudden I saw it at like 3 different stores, and I was like, that means something. I gotta get that. Willy Wombat is a Sega Saturn exclusive. It was never released on any other system, and it was only released in Japan, which is strange because you know who made it? Naughty Dog. Yeah, like the Naughty Dog, the guys who go on to make Crash Bandicoot and all that. The reason that's important is this is actually the first Crash Bandicoot game. I know what you're thinking. What? So when they were first making this game, the goal wasn't necessarily to make Willy Wombat. The goal was for Naughty Dog to make a mascot character. Specifically, they were trying to make a Sonic, a Mario type of thing, right? And so they actually narrowed it down to a few different animals, wombats, bandicoots, etc. And they made this game thinking, all right, this is our final design. The name of the character, Willy Wombat, was put on by a different company, if I remember the story correctly. And Naughty Dog really didn't like the name of the game or the character. They wanted to change the name up to Crash Bandicoot, but they weren't allowed to. So then they just said, screw this, and made Crash Bandicoot entirely. So they just redesigned the character and put the name on it that they wanted. Technically, because of that oddness, this is the first Crash Bandicoot game exclusive to the Saturn in Japan only. There it is. Next up, a game for a system I never get games for. I think in the entire history of this channel, I've only been able to show you one game ever for this system because it's the only time I ever found one. Sunshine, who I alluded to before, Mr. Hand-Egg Anime Guy here, he actually found this and he bought it for me. I paid him back, but he found this for me. This is a game called Invitation for the FM Towns Marty. The FM Towns Marty is a system. It's probably my #1 I want it system. Famously, I own a ton of different consoles. You guys have seen it over the years. The FM Towns Marty is only really known for one thing. It was the first 5th generation video game console. It was exclusive to Japan. It was not a big hit. It was basically a consoleized version of some Japanese PC hardware. I've only seen them twice ever. Like once my buddy of mine actually owns one that he just has. And the only other time I ever saw one was for sale. It was boxed, it was complete, and it was in Portland, Oregon, oddly enough. Not at PRGE, just like a store. And they wanted $2,000 for it. No thanks. So I don't have that system. But if I ever get it, like one day, I'll have a second game for it. You know, I found a controller separately for it. I just need to find the console at an acceptable price point. That's really all that is. But in the meantime, I got a game. Is the game any good? Probably not. Here we go. I was at a hard-off in Akihabara, which I don't really like Akihabara. I've talked about this in the past. Aside from all the anime stuff, which whatever, it doesn't affect me directly. Pricing in Akihabara is usually pretty bad. And you can usually tell a place is a bad place to pick up games if it's nothing but other gaijin, other like, oh, I just came from America and I'm going to buy games here. This is Akihabara. I understand this is where I'm supposed to get my games. When you see those guys, you go, this is not good. We got to go. So I kind of hate being around that area because it makes me feel like a noob in every sense of the word. So we went into a hard off, which of course everything was comically overpriced because everything in Akihabara usually is. Though to be fair to Akihabara on this trip, there were a couple of random spots like hidden stores, not Super Potato. Never go to Super Potato. I've said this in the past. Never go to Super Potato. It is terrible. It's famous, but it is terrible. Anyway, so we're in this hard off, and I'm just kind of doing the rounds, checking stuff. And then I found this in like the junk disc bin area, and I was like a little shocked. So I see on the side it's a Dreamcast, spine. I'm figuring it's the usual like sports games type of junk. It wasn't. It was Phantasy Star Online version 2. At least that's what the case said. And I was like, I don't really care about that. I have the American version of the game. But I look inside the case, and what's in there is the Japanese version of Pro Action Replay, DC PAR from Karat. Basically, this is a cheat code disc. I know what set it is. I actually don't even have the actual set. It's a bigger, like, bulky box. It comes with that disc and, like, a manual and, like, a little, memory card cartridge type of thing. This is just the disc, but it was, like, 80 cents. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get the full box one because the full box one's like an $80 set. I figured getting the disc for 80 cents, maybe I can piece it together if I ever need to, or worst case scenario, I just rip the disc, archive it, and we're done. But this is kind of cool because if you ever actually wanted to use cheat codes on one of the Japanese games, you would actually need this. So yeah, I got that. And then why does Phantasy Star Online matter? Not really, but it has the back artwork there. And underneath the disc, it shows the original serial number for that game. Now, the reason that matters is Phantasy Star Online is the only game on the Dreamcast where you can't even attempt to play it without a valid serial key. So these keys are clonable. Like, you use them multiple times unless you actually go online with it, which I wouldn't. which technically you can now, by the way. But having a spare serial key to be able to activate it if I ever need to, 80 cents, totally worth it. Speaking of Dreamcast, did find another demo disc at one of these. A game called Tricolor Crisis. Not Crisis, Crisis. C-R-I-S-E. If I remember correctly, this is just some sort of anime date sim type of thing. It's stunning to me that the anime date sims, of which there are far too many on the Dreamcast, got not for sale demo discs. That's the other thing. They all say not for sale, which obviously they were because I bought it. But like originally, that they must have been giving them away. I just don't understand the context, but whatever. Another disc-based game. This is probably the best game, to be totally honest with you, that we picked up on the entire trip. And I can't imagine anyone out there will detract from that. For one of the greatest consoles in history. Not the Loopy. I was not chosen. The Loopy chooses you. You don't choose to find Loopy games. It chooses you. And it didn't choose me. I was not considered worthy. But I was considered worthy and chosen by the Bandai Playdia. Now, the Playdia is very selective on who it's willing to communicate with. It actually didn't... Okay, I'm going to be totally honest. It chose Sunshine. He found this, the guy Sunshine, and then he bought it and I paid him back. So technically I wasn't chosen, but it happened. You know, you get a little heartbreaker, but you get through it. But the Bandai Playdia, for real though, is a system I did a video on a while back. Basically, Bandai decided to make a child-friendly console. It's an odd one because it actually is a game console, but it doesn't have any games. It essentially just uses like a movie format that was meant to be interactive for kids, but technically it was capable of games. They just didn't really make anything. Think about the worst elements of the Sega CD where it's like FMV stuff. Now it's only that. And these aren't even really FMV games. They are literally just like VCDs, like they're movies, and you can just kind of pause and stop. Like they're essentially its own movie format. The only thing that's really interesting about it, and this isn't interesting to me personally, but Bandai put a lot of effort into this, and they owned a bunch of different franchises. So they apparently like made specific movies and video content for this machine that were, or possibly even still are, exclusive to the system. The one most notable is there's a Dragon Ball Z game for it that consists of episodes that I guess only exist on the Bandai Playdia. Now this is an Ultraman game. I say game in quotations. Is the content of this exclusive to the Playdia? Doubt it. Don't know. Don't really care. But it was a cheap enough Playdia game. You just get it, save it, put it in the library. Good. We've got a Playdia library for the 2 people in history that will ever care about that. But here it is. Now we also got some hardware at Hard Off, in addition to the keyboard, of course. One thing I got was totally useless, but it's something I've wanted ever since I was a kid. And I just never really bothered with it. It's the Game Gear TV tuner. This is in the box too. The box is a little beat up, obviously, but it was pretty cheap. I think this was like $10. Now, the reason this is so cheap now is it's worthless. The radio signals don't even exist. They don't broadcast anymore to make this of any use. And as far as I know, there's no other way to like get a signal to it. It's purely a novelty to have, but it was cool all the same. So when I was a kid, like my cousin had a Game Gear, and I think he actually had the TV tuner. So I remember like we went somewhere, and he's watching TV on this thing. I'm like, this is so much better than my Game Boy. My Game Boy has no backlight, it has no color. I can't watch TV on it. He's sitting there watching TV in color. Wow. So I kind of remember wanting it for that reason. But never got it. So yeah, here it is. It's totally worthless now. It doesn't do anything, but yeah, it's just a neat little novelty. Also got another box piece of hardware that again is sort of a novelty. It does actually have a practical application, but not as much of one as it used to. This is the GameCube 251 memory card in the box, which I thought was kind of neat. If you're a GameCube collector, this is just honestly is a cool display piece. But what this really is just a memory card. But the thing is, and I'm just operating off of a memory I have from like over 20 years ago when this was announced. Basically, Nintendo, they of course had memory card slots on the GameCube. That's how you would save your games. To the younger viewers who have no idea what I'm talking about, your gameplay progress would not save on the system internally back in the day. If you had a disc-based console, you had to actually have a card like this, and this is how it would save your progress. Now, the GameCube had standard memory cards, and they had a small space allotment. I want to say it was like 80 blocks, but I could definitely be wrong about that number. But it was small enough. You could put a few games on there and then it would fill up. This was basically just like the big one. It had 251 blocks on it, so it was like having 3 or 4 cards all at once. You know, that was basically the logic to it. The reason this is kind of antiquated now is there are actually like SD card adapter memory cards where you just put in like whatever SD card and it'll just save everything you ever need. Like that exists. This was purely just like, oh, it's stupid cheap. It technically would work. It's not like I couldn't use it. And it's just a cool display piece for a GameCube collection. We got a few games here. We talked about Game Gear. We'll talk about it again. This is a Puyo Puyo game exclusively to Game Gear in Japan. It's something like Puyo Puyo Curry. I'll put the name on the screen. As far as I can tell, you're Puyo Puyo, but you're making Japanese curry or something. I don't know. There's a surprisingly large number of Game Gear exclusives in Japan, and the system is totally region free too, which is nice. We got some Famicom stuff. This was one that's, I think, interesting. I've wanted it for a while just because of what it is, but never had the chance to get it, and because I've been there so many times. This is the Goonies for Famicom. The reason this is kind of fascinating is we got Goonies 2 on the NES, but the first Goonies game famously never came out here. I've actually, well, it sort of did, and I'll get back to that. This version came out only in Japan, minus the asterisk. And I've been to the Goonies locations multiple times. I've even done videos on them on the Travel Channel. I've been to that house. I've been to the sites. You can go see all that stuff. I like the Goonies. It's a fun movie. But yeah, it got a Famicom game. I've always kind of wanted it, and just finally found it for like $4 or whatever it was. And I was like, all right, you know what, fine, we'll go ahead and get it. Pretty playable game, and better than the second one, the one that we actually got. Now the reason this is an interesting release is technically there is an NES release of this. Technically. There was one of those like Nintendo 10-in-1 arcade cabinets or whatever that actually came with this game, which was its only American release, was built into one of those arcade cabinets. This is the same game, but actually in a cart form. There's some people who actually pursue that machine specifically for that collection just because that's the only way to get the American version of that game. I'm cool with this. Also for the Famicom, I want to say it's called like King Kong 2 or something. I don't even remember the details of this. I just know I wanted it. Another Famicom exclusive. Well, I think there's an MSX version, which I'm sure is much better. That's almost always the case with NES and Famicom versions of stuff. But yeah, still, I don't know why I wanted it. I just saw it and I was like, oh, monkey. I got it. One thing I got that was kind of by accident. With obviously the NES is very well known and beloved for a few different games, one of which would be The Legend of Zelda. Everybody remembers that, and to a lesser extent, Zelda 2. But anyway, so those games are pursued. People like them, but in Japan they were a stranger release. They actually came out as Famicom Disk System games. They weren't really meant for the NES or the Famicom specifically. Now, the first game did ultimately get a physical cartridge release on Famicom. It's a green cartridge. But as far as I can tell, the second one never actually got the cartridge release. Now, I didn't really care because I have the American versions. I'm good enough with that. But on the trip, Sunshine found the first game for Famicom Disk System. And he's like, oh, I think I'm going to get that. And I don't know why, but I suddenly wanted it. Probably like, hey, you can't have that. I got to have that. I don't know what my mentality was. So I went to another store, and I found it, and I bought it, only to realize I got the wrong one. I actually got Legend of Zelda 2, which is actually the far less common one, by mistake. It even came with the manual and everything. So, yeah, there you go. Famicom Disk System game, Legend of Zelda 2. Now, the problem with Famicom Disk System games is you never actually know if the game's even really on there or not, because famously you could rewrite these cartridges, in fact, or carts. They're basically like floppy disks, and Nintendo essentially encouraged people to do so. They even built like kiosks for that purpose. It was kind of a good way. I think they were dealing with a chip shortage or something like that at the time, and it was a good way to kind of get people to buy the system and then just keep buying games, but whatever, and then not have to buy new hardware. So you don't really know if it's the actual game until you try playing it. For me, honestly, it's just the novelty of having it. I'm assuming because it was all wrapped up and behind glass that it's probably all good, but I also don't really care all that much if it isn't. And then we got a couple of little portable things here. First up, the Bandai Wonder Swan, which I almost just dropped there. I didn't realize we had two Bandai things here. Yeah, there you go. So this is funny. I've got a Wonder Swan. If you're not familiar with the Wonder Swan, it is Bandai's really only attempt at a handheld. They did this and they did the Wonder Swan Color. This was actually developed by Gunpei Yokoi. Now, he was the guy who made the Game Boy and the Virtual Boy, but after Virtual Boy, Nintendo kind of quietly kicked him out, even though that really wasn't his fault. And he went on to over to Bandai, and they had to make this, which was an interesting little portable design that really was meant to be small, compact, not use much power, and just kind of place, basic games. In fact, its battery slot is very unique. It's this little plastic thing that just kind of pops off here, and that houses the battery on that side. Yeah, it's a strange little design, but it totally, works. Now, I've actually had one of these for years, but mine is actually sealed. I've got a Korean Digimon edition, oddly enough, that was given to me for free by a buddy of mine named Chip, but I've never actually had, access to, the system, because I don't want to open up a sealed, oddball variant. There's just no reason to. So I found this in a junk bin. It looked decent enough shape, I was like, all right, fine, so now I'll have it. And then Sunshine pointed out to me, hey, man, you need to, get a game for it. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll deal with it later. Never did it. So I actually didn't pick up any games for it, but I've got one. And then I got a couple of Dreamcast VMUs. Again, with Dreamcast hardware, I like to get every version of the console except for all the Japanese stuff because it's impossible. So I just kind of chip away at it when I see something cheap enough. I'm like, all right, fine. So the VMUs I got, this is the Giant Graham version. This is a wrestling game that came out. They gave it its own red VMU. The cap is missing, of course, but yeah, it's got that. And then we've got the leopard print one, which is one of the fancier ones. Japan did a lot of these fancy VMUs. They did so many variations. The US only got 5 different versions of the VMU. It was the basic one plus 4 of the colors, and I think that's really all we got. Yeah, Japan went nuts, as you can see. I've been, like I said, chipping away at it over the years, but there's no real goal there. It's more oh, that's cheap enough. I don't have that one. Yeah, sure, let's go for it. But yeah, cool to get those. So that's the end of Hard Off stuff. And now on to our last store chain. This is a place called Suragaya Specialty Shop. Now this is another chain of stores throughout Japan, mostly in the Tokyo area, but there are definitely some locations over in the Kansai area like Osaka. We didn't end up having enough time in Nagoya to really check any of this stuff, unfortunately. But while we're there, I went to these stores. Now the stores, hence the name, they're specialty stores. They focus kind of on a lot of nerd stuff, a lot of anime stuff, a lot of movies, music, video games, obviously, books, toys, that kind of thing. They're a pretty good place for video games, but they're kind of mid-tier. And what I mean by that is Hard Off will be a complete gamble. If they have it, it will be cheap. If they don't have it, better luck next time. That's kind of the way it is. Whereas Suragaya Specialty Shop is kind of hey, if we have it, it's going to be kind of in mid-range pricing. You could definitely get it cheaper at Hard Off if you find it, but hey, we actually have it. And then there's ridiculous tier pricing above them, like Super Potato, which you should never go to. They'll have crazy inventory usually, but they also charge ridiculous above retail type of prices where you just laugh at it. And again, that Super Potato you always know is bad because I have never seen a Japanese person actually in there other than the employees. Everyone walking around is always Baka Gaijin. Oh, I didn't even mention this Neo Geo CD, did I? Well, I did, and I didn't. All I'm going to say about this is, yeah, I bought a Neo Geo CD for one very specific purpose. This was the one thing in Japan I knew I had to come back with. I talked about this in a recent episode of Playload. There is an SD card loader, an ODE for this thing now. And the guys at Stone Age Gamer were we're happy to send you one of those if you want to do a video. And I was like, yeah, the problem is I don't have a top-loading Neo Geo CD that doesn't work. I already have the system, but mine works fine. I don't really want to gut an operational unit for this. And they're like, well, if you find another one, it's all yours. And I was like, okay. So I hunted around Japan, figuring I wouldn't have that hard of a time because I have found Neo Geo CDs a lot, but they're drying up. This one came from Hard Off, obviously. And the stupid thing about this one was Sunshine found it for I want to say it was 100 or something like that. It wasn't terrible, it was just not great, but it was boxed, it was complete, came with 2 controllers, which sounds like good things, but I was I really just need the system and preferably out of a junk bin. If I could pay $10 for it, I'd be thrilled. But I didn't expect that to happen. So I was okay, look, you found one, we know it's there, I'll hunt around a bunch of other places. Very long story short, the only time we ever found it again was Super Potato. It was $300 for no reason. So I ultimately went back to the Hard Off and picked this up. So this will eventually be modified and have an SD card loader in it, which is stupid again because I know it works, so I have to take the disk drive out. But whatever. That way I have one stock unit and one SD unit and whatever. And I didn't need the box. I already had the damn box. So whatever. It was the only way to really get this done. Okay, now, sorry, over to Surigaya Specialty Shop. You would think I would have noticed this giant box, and I just... Anyway, so all these games came from a series of those stores. There's a bunch of these places, so let's just go through it. The first up is for a system I never buy games for, ever. I literally don't think I've ever shown you one. Maybe one, ever. This is Godzilla for the Super CD-ROM, aka the PC Engine CD. Now, the only reason I got this... Godzilla, like I'm a big fan. I had no other reason to get this game. I like PC Engine hardware. I've got a bunch of it. I've showed it to you guys over the years. But the actual like games I very rarely pursue because it's so late to try and get into PC Engine and PC Engine CD and stuff like that. It's just too prohibitively expensive. It's too overwhelming. I like having the hardware, and then I'm going to be honest, if I'm using like an EverDrive or one of those Terra Onion things, I'll just do that. This was purely like, hey, it's Godzilla. It'd be a cool one to have on the, in the set. But I know the game itself is not that great. It's a fighting game. I think there's a Super Nintendo version of this, actually. Back to the FM Towns Marty. Yes. Sunshine came through. The FM Towns Marty chose Sunshine, just as the Playdia chose him. I was not chosen. He found these, and to be fair, we were in the store together, but he found them because he knew what he was looking for. I got, whatever. Super Real Mahjong P2 and P3. Sounds like a blast. And then this is called like Yumimi Remix or something. I only remember the name of this vaguely because I actually have the Sega Saturn version of this, which is like this giant box. This happens to be the exact same game, I think. And it happens to be for the FM Towns Marty, which it actually says it right there on the box. That's the thing about FM Towns stuff is it's a little complicated because there's PC games, and then there's the console games, and then there's ones that work on both. This one actually goes out of its way to mention that it works on both. This one doesn't mention the Marty specifically, but based on us looking it up, this one should work. It's just a mixed bag. It's kind of like Amiga CD32 to anybody in the UK who understands that reference. There's some games that just don't even mention the CD32, but it happens to work on them. It wasn't very consistent. Speaking of weirdo games, for the 3DO, yeah, I got something for the 3DO. I believe this is the Yakuken Special. Not the same one. All right, this requires a story. There is a concept in Japan called the Yakuken Special, which is basically strip rock, paper, scissors. So there's just got girls who are just standing there modeling, and then they do a little dance, and then they throw out their hand like this, and then the computer chooses if you won or not. If you win, they lose articles of clothing. If you lost, you get it to try again until you lose, I guess. But really, you bought this, so you already lost from being a loser. But anyway, so I picked this up because there's two versions of this game for the 3DO. I've already got the other one, because again, loser. But I also have the Saturn one, which we famously, on my the channel I used to work on, Game Society Films, or Game Society Pimps, whatever, we did videos on like the Sega Saturn one, because it's just such a bizarre, hilarious thing. But yeah, so we ended up getting that because we just found it and I couldn't believe there was a second one of these, so boom, got it. Is it any good? Probably not. Now, more 360 stuff. As I said, the whole story over there. Got a couple more shoot 'em ups. I kind of decided I don't really care about all the weird anime, like date sims and idol singing and whatever. But the shoot 'em ups, at least I could play those if I wanted to, so I grabbed a few more. This one is something extra, Black Label. Again, I'll put the link in the description. I don't know. It's got like weird little creepy dolls or whatever. I have no idea what's really going on. These things are always so bizarre. The artwork on the back in particular is really bad. Like, they used a really blown up screenshot to the point where it's like cutting off text. Like, when I first saw that, I thought, oh, this is like a fake printed up copy. No, this is the real official artwork. Now, maybe this is what they sent to Microsoft US and they saw that and like, oh, that's the end of that. I doubt it. But like, the quality of the print there, not very good. And then this other game called Espagalua. It's in English and I can't read it. Espagalua, sure, why not? 2, Black Label Edition, which is yet again just another shoot 'em up. This one actually came in like a special edition box set, which I've got right here. I just don't really care about it. It came in this bigger box. It actually has an Xbox 360 faceplate in it. It was cheaper to get it with this than without it, because again, Japan does not really value the box sets. The boxes take up space. They don't want it. It costs them less for you to just take it and get it out of their store than it is for them to throw it away. So the financial incentive is to charge less for it. Strange, right? But that's how it is. Anyway, so got that game exclusive on Xbox 360, or at least it was. Don't know if that's still the case. Probably not. Moving on, a few other random games here. Speaking of Club Nintendo from earlier, we got another little oddball thing. This is not a Club Nintendo exclusive, well, technically, and is not even a Japanese exclusive. Technically, much like those, it's a very similar release. But I got this there, and it originally came out from Club Nintendo. This is Pac-Man Versus, which is a tiny little envelope there, and a little manual. Now, what's the deal with this? First, it's worth noting that this game did actually come out in North America. I believe it came out with Pac-Man Fever 2. There were certain bundles that had both discs. And inside that, there would be a copy of the American version of this game. There was also a mail-away envelope version in North America that I've only ever seen once. My buddy Nate down in Kansas City, I found it, and he was a huge GameCube guy at the time. So I was like, if you don't want that, I'm going to get it. And he was like, no, I want it. So he went ahead and he got it. So good for him. But we did technically get that version. But in Japan, they got it through Club Nintendo. Now, what's the deal with this game? What's interesting about it is this is a Pac-Man game made by Shigeru Miyamoto, Mr. Creator of Mario himself. He made this game. It's, as far as I know, the only time he made a Pac-Man game. It actually says not for resale on there. That actually doesn't even say it in English. Not that I've learned the Japanese, but I can now recognize the kanji because it's the same exact text that appears on all these Dreamcast demo discs right below not for sale. So a guy, specialty shop was selling stuff they weren't supposed to sell. Breaking the law. Anyway, so yeah, I just really wanted it for the GameCube collector's novelty, kind of like this. There's really no, because again, I've already got the game. But it's actually a pretty good game. Moving on, some Neo Geo CD stuff. Again, same basic rules apply. If they're cheap enough, and I don't have them, I'm just going to go for it. Some of these are odd because these are uncommon titles, and they really shouldn't be. Art of Fighting 1. Art of Fighting is a very significant SNK franchise. It has appeared on like everything they ever did, but for some reason, the first game on Neo Geo CD, again, not very valuable, but this was literally the first time I've ever seen it. So I just went ahead and got it. Now I believe I have the whole trilogy of them. And the same would actually go for Fatal Fury 2. This one is especially egregious because Fatal Fury 2 is stupid common on the AES, the cartridge system. I own it on the cartridge system. It is stupid common on the MVS, the arcade cabinet. It's the only actual MVS cart I own. Literally the most common ones. On this Neo Geo CD, for some reason, it is a very hard game to find. The first and the third, common as dirt. The second one, only time I have ever seen it anywhere ever. Don't know why, but there it is. So I got that. This one is not common. This one is kind of expensive. I got a pretty good deal on it though. And again, my buddy Joseph bullied me into it because he's a big Neo Geo CD guy. Crossed Swords 2. Which I believe is also a fighting game, as is typically the case with Neo Geo CD stuff or Neo Geo stuff in general. What's interesting about this one is I believe this is one of the only games that's actually truly exclusive to the Neo Geo CD. I don't think this ever got an AES or MVS conversion. I don't think it's ever been released on anything else either. So I believe, I could be wrong on that, it's either this or the first one or both are just totally exclusive to the system, which is pretty cool. So I've got the first one already, so having both, great, awesome. Don't have to worry about that anymore. So very cool to add to the Neo Geo CD collection, especially because we're going to mod this thing all up, and then we'll have an SD card full of all these games, and it'll be great. Eventually we can do that video. We'll have even more content available for you. Next thing up here was a big collector's goal. I just wasn't expecting to find it. Nintendo 64. I have all 7 of the European exclusives. And when I say that, there's really only 4 exclusives, plus they got 3 games that Japan got that the US never got. So there's 7 releases over there that the US never got. Then in Japan, there was like 80 releases that neither Europe or North America ever got. And my goal has been to try and get all of those. Now, over the years, I've been pretty successful at that. I narrowed it all the way down to the point where on this trip, there was only 3 left. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to find them, but if I do, that'd be great. I found the most common of the 3, and when I say most common, I mean like, if you look for it on eBay, you will find it, usually for 50 or 60 bucks, which is, as far as the concept of heavy hitters goes, is really not very bad. But that's not what I paid for it. This is called like Zool something or other. Again, I'll put the name on the bottom of the screen. Found this for like 3,000 yen, which was perfect. It was behind glass, so it tells you that this is not a common title. I hadn't just been missing it a bunch. I've been looking for this forever to try and find it. I think this is the first time I'd ever even seen it anywhere. So I got that off the list. Now I'm down to 2. The only 2 I'm still missing is there's a game called there's Bangai-O, which was a Dreamcast game, had an N64 version. I've actually found it a few different times, especially in the last couple of trips, but only behind glass and always complete with the box for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, I just want the cart. I don't need the box. I'm not paying the extra $100 or whatever for the box. And then there's this other one called Mario no Photopie, which I've only ever seen once, and it's a tragic tale, so I don't want to tell it. But yeah, I don't own that either. So we've narrowed one down. Very happy about that. Next up, speaking of Nintendo, we got another thing for the Virtual Boy. Yes, you guys remember I got a Virtual Boy in that Hard Off video, and I picked up a whole bunch of games. This one, shout out to my buddy Candace, Virtual Girl. She gave me some info on this. I believe, according to her, from what I recall, this is actually a Japanese exclusive Virtual Boy game. Hadn't seen it before. I think we might have saw it like twice on the whole trip. So I bought this when I found it. This is a game called Space Squash. I've not had a chance to play it, unfortunately, but I've heard it's actually not bad. You know, squash, sports game where you just hit the thing against the wall. Kind of makes sense with what the Virtual Boy is, with the 3D realms and all that, so I could see why that would make a lot of sense, but very cool to get that off the list. Not that there is a real list. Virtual Boy is kind of like Neo Geo CD for me. It's like, if I don't have it, it's there and it's cheap, go for it. Otherwise, no. And it has to be cheap, though. Like, we did actually find 2 more of the Virtual Boy games I needed, quotations, but there was no way I was going to buy them. There's a survival horror game on the Virtual Boy, oddly enough. We found it once. It was like 300 bucks, and I was like, no. And then we found, this is going to sound really weird, the rarest game on the system, Space Invaders. It's like an $800 game. We found it. Obviously, I wasn't going to pay that. But this, I was willing to go for. Then, Dreamcast stuff. Mostly demo disc, if not entirely demo disc. This first one might seem a little familiar. I've talked about this in the past. This is a demo disc for a game called Sentimental Graffiti 2, specifically the Yu Nanase edition. The story with this is there is a game called Sentimental Graffiti 2, and it features like 10 different girls, and I guess the idea is you date them, or I have no idea. But each one of the girls got their own demo disc that has just, the only difference is just the artwork. It's literally like, oh, it's this girl and that's her name. And stupidly, because I love the Dreamcast, I love Dreamcast more than I dislike anime. Let's put it that way. That's the only reason this makes any sense, to my mind anyway. So I went around, I've been trying to find all of them. I think I actually have them now. I think this was the only one I didn't have. I'd have to actually double check on that, and I really hope it's over, because I don't want to keep buying these. Because the stupid thing is the disc is identical. The disc is exactly the same in all 10 versions. So like once you've ripped it, it's once is done. So you're literally just buying it for the different cover. Stupid. I know. Stupid. Then we got a Sakura Wars 4 demo disc of some kind. All it says is something like promotional disc, I think, if I remember correctly, at the bottom. This didn't really, it was kind of, oh, okay, done, got it off the list. Then I found a different one. This is a different Sakura Wars 4 disc that actually says not for sale. Now, I can't read the Japanese, but from what I vaguely remember, somebody said this is the demo disc and this is like a promotional disc. So this might be like FMVs or something. I really don't know, but hey, Sakura Wars fans, what's up? Then we got, I actually passed on this originally because I thought it was just a disc-only copy of the game. Then I realized it wasn't. This is the demo of Seaman. You guys remember that? That game came out on the Dreamcast. It had Leonard Nimoy voicing a fish that you interacted with a microphone, whatever. There was a few other versions of this game that came out in Japan, like Christmas Seaman and stuff. I got all those. But I had no idea there was a demo disc for the first one, and there it was. So go for it. Then we got... this is called like this is called like Trial of the Berserk or something like that. In the US, this was known as Sword of the Berserk. We did get this game, but in Japan the name was slightly different. It was just like Berserk or something like that. It was weird. This is the first time I'd ever seen it, so I was happy to get it. Then for some reason on the same trip I found it like 3 times. I don't know. It's like somebody found them and just said, "Hee, I'm going to see Johnny Appleseed these things all over the place." I don't know why, but either way, good to get that. Do you remember earlier I mentioned a Dreamcast magazine in Japan with demo discs? I did mention it. This is the only one of them I've ever found. This is the first disc of the first issue. It's not to be confused with Dreamcast Extra, which was a digital magazine they did through the Dreamcast, which I have all of those. That was easy. But this, Dreamcast Magazine GD, Volume 1, Industrial Agents for Active Espionage. That's just referring to the demos that are on there. Yeah, contents. Espion Agents, Sengoku Turb, 7th Cross Fighting Integration Disc. Anyway, yeah, so this is the only one. I don't know how many of these they made. I would bet quite a few, but I've never seen another one. Ever. I've never seen the magazines. I've never seen any of the other discs. Just this. And it's stupid, too, because it's only like 300 yen. Like, it was like nothing to buy this. It's just a matter of finding it. I'm going to have to put the name on the screen. I legit do not remember. But a demo disc for said game, which I'm pretty sure is just another date sim type of thing. I want to say like Maboroshi or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. This one I know is a stupid date sim. Made Cafe Curio Chocolat or Chocolat Made Cafe Curio as a demo disc. That rings a bell. Isn't it a little embarrassing? I actually know the Dreamcast library well enough to know that that's probably the name of this game. Anyway, yeah, so there you go. I forgot about this. So I just mentioned Bangai-O for the N64. I forgot I also found the Dreamcast demo disc of Bangai-O. This one shocked me. Here's the thing. So with the demo discs, you know, I found a few that I did not buy. Like I mentioned that Crazy Sonic Adventure one. I found the Soul Calibur one. I actually found other ones like there was a stupid horse racing simulator game that has like the Densha de Derby or something crazy like that, which I guess I don't remember the name of all the Dreamcast games perfectly. But there was this one horse racing game, and it is common as dirt. You see it in all the sports. Like when I was talking about that Phantasy Star disc, there was like a 50% chance it was going to be that same horse racing game. But it has a demo disc. We found it. We found that demo disc in a Surgai specialty shop. It was like $200. I passed on it. I was like, I'm not buying that. Next day, we go to there. It's gone. Somebody was like, oh man, need that. Point is, sometimes these demo discs can be very expensive. And I don't care when they are. This one, you would think Bangai-O, which is a super expensive game in every other context, you would think would be expensive for the demo. No, this was like nothing. This was like 1,000 yen. It's like $6, $7. Don't know why, but I'm happy to have it. This was probably the most exciting one to get because I was like, that felt more like a mistake than anything else, but very cool. And the last things we got here, we're almost at the end, guys, I swear. We got 2 games, yes, 2, for the Pioneer Laser Active, a system which I've had. Yes, do you even know what the Pioneer Laser Active is? I'm going to give you a quick little history lesson because I did do a video on it, but if you don't want to watch it, fine. Basically, in the very early 90s, like around 93, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong because it's been a long time since I really checked in on this, Sega did a deal along with NEC and Pioneer to make this console called the Laser Active. It's basically a Laserdisc player that just functioned as a Laserdisc player, but if you had these little packs, there was one by Sega and there was one by NEC. If you had the little packs, it could then play Sega Genesis or Mega Drive games, as well as Sega CD games or Mega CD games. Or if you had the NEC pack, it could play the TurboGrafx or PC Engine games, or TurboGrafx CD or Super PC Engine CD games. It could play all that stuff. But if you had one of those packs as well, it could also play its own proprietary games. And there was only like 13 or 15 games ever released for it, most of which only came out in Japan. Now, I've had one since like 2002, if you can believe that. It's been a minute. Like, I've had one of those. I remember I was the weird kid that once the Dreamcast was done, I was like, oh man, I was in high school. I want you to understand this. I was a freshman in high school who had the foresight to be like, this stuff is going to get valuable because Sega's not making consoles anymore. Nobody cares about it right now. Get it now. It's going to be worth something later. I remember buying the Laser Active with like 50 laser discs and a whole bunch of games from some guy on eBay for like $100. He was thrilled to get rid of it, and that included shipping these 2 giant boxes full of just junk. Like, I remember jumping on all this. And so, like, but in all that time, I've only been able to get 3 games for it. The most recent one was just a few months ago at PRGE 2022. And before that, the second game I ever got for it was PRGE 2019. For 20 years almost, I had one game for the system. It's called Pyramid Patrol. On this trip, we got two. It's huge. The first one, probably the better one, a game called Space Berserker, which I only realized while setting up the table for this video, is sealed. This is factory sealed, so I'm not opening this because there's really no reason to. But yeah, these games are bizarre, man, because they... Think about how like the Sega CD worked, where it had like FMV stuff. The fact was that this thing had access to a Laserdisc player, so it could use the technology in the Laserdisc player for kind of unique experiences. So essentially, it's playing a Laserdisc movie, but then it's using the game contents to be able to essentially display game sprites over it. So Pyramid Patrol is a really great example of that. That's probably why they included it as a pack-in, because it's basically playing this movie of like, you know, kind of like a camera running through a bunch of pyramids, and all sorts of things. It looks like you're dodging stuff. Then the game console element of it kind of animates this ship in front of it, and you control that ship, and you can fire like lasers at stuff, and it knows when you're hitting stuff. And really, the background is just ambiance. It doesn't actually have any interactivity. Most of the games, if not all of them, work kind of the same way. And so this one utilizes the same concept. Now, this would be cool. This one was actually made by Sega, apparently, according to the back. But I'm not going to bother opening it because, I mean, like, how many sealed copies of Space Berserker can still exist? You would maybe argue, oh, don't you want to rip it and archive it? There's no way to do that. There's no way to rip laser active games, to my knowledge, because it's partially analog. Then, you know, there's no disk drive that can, like, exactly rip this stuff. So the most you can do is play it and just, like, capture footage so people can watch the footage. But to actually rip the data, no. But anyway, yeah, actually, it's got a... let's read... We got a minute. I know this took a while, but whatever. Let's do this. It's got the whole description on the front is in English, oddly enough. Stardate Omega 183. The people of Earth successfully developed the ultimate interplanetary navigation technology, a warp drive. And used it to integrate the solar system into the SSU, Solar System Union. This sounds oddly like a Star Trek clone. 10 years later, the final experiment for a more powerful interstar warp is being conducted at the Hades Science Lab on Pluto. Hey, Sega Pluto, what up? The SSU multi-purpose space battle Odin on maneuvers in outer zone of the solar system receives an SOS from the Hades base during testing of the interstar warp and heads immediately for the Pluto space area. There, the Earth Federation forces engage in a battle with flying objects, the like of which they have never seen. The Federation forces headquarters calls them by the code Berserker. I'm really surprised they put that entire description in English on the front. I think on the back is very Japanese. But yeah, that's cool. And then the next one up is I'm less proud of, but it kind of had to happen because, as I mentioned before, the most recent game I got prior to these was in PRGE 2022. I don't know if anybody out there remembers what that game was. Anybody? I'll give you a second. No? That's fine. I don't blame you. Virtual Cameraman 2, where you manipulate a camera around a bunch of girls. Japan. What can I say? But Virtual Cameraman 2 implies the existence of a Virtual Cameraman 1. Well, yeah, that happens to be the thing. Yep. This one is not sealed. Clearly somebody wanted access to this one. And it smells like Japan. And I don't mean that because of the actual like social nature of the content. Japan has a definitive smell. Anybody who's ever been there can tell you what it is. If you ever bought stuff from Japan, the way their plastic and their cardboard, I don't know why it smells like this, but it has this very distinct smell that the blindfold me, put a bunch of odors in front of me. That passes over my nose. I'm like, oh, that's something from Japan. You know what I'm talking about if you've ever been there or imported stuff. Trust me, you do it. If you don't, it's just a thing. But yeah, Virtual Cameraman 1, which is kind of like this Yakugan thing, except not much of a game element to it. It's just, hey, it's girls on couches, like, holding their body parts, and yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, this does not speak well of me, does it? Or is it more embarrassing that I decided to get this? Hard to say. But, yeah, that will do it for these Japanese pickups. I don't know when the next trip to Japan is, if there's another trip to Japan anytime soon. But I hope you guys enjoyed this pickups video. And hopefully you guys get to go out to Japan now that it's opened up and you can pick stuff up. I will say this. if you want to get a bunch of Japanese stuff, I realize there's obvious temptation to buy stuff online, and I realize this sounds spoiled to say this, but don't just do that. You have no idea the markup you're paying. It's depending on the amount of content you want. Like, you want 1 item or 2 items, that's a different story. But if you're like, hey, I want to buy a ton of stuff, do not buy online. It reaches a point where it's actually more cost effective to go to Japan. Like, it can get crazy because usually eBay will be reflective of about 10 times of what something costs in Japan. Because the guys who are doing that are really selling it to you at a premium. You just don't realize it. The example I always use is something like Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Saturn. The American version of that, $1,000 game, if not even more by this point. The Japanese version of that, people online are like, wow, the Japanese version is only like, $10. That's crazy. I'll just totally do that, which makes sense. But you don't realize it's only like $1 a game in Japan. Now, that's a difference between $1 and $10 obviously doesn't justify a trip to Japan. But my point is, it just kind of functions on like every level. Like, if I had bought all the same stuff from Japan and had it shipped to me, easily would have cost more than the trip did itself, which incidentally I didn't even really pay to go there. So it's like, just trust me. If you ever want to get a whole bunch of Japanese stuff, commit to actually going to Japan. And it's not just me talking to my Discord, talking to the guy Sunshine who's there. He'll tell you, like, yeah, that was definitely worth the adventure and the experience and to be in Japan and have all that fun. And it's just something to do. I always recommend it to people. But so that'll do it for now. If you guys could do me a favor again, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that already, as well as the social media stuff in the description, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, etc. And check out that travel channel I'm talking about. You can see all these adventures in Japan. You can learn all this stuff beforehand, so when you go, you are not a noob. You don't have to be a baka gaijin walking around who has no idea what he's doing. And of course, you can see a whole bunch of other parts of the world that maybe you're curious about, or maybe you never will actually get to go to, and you want to see what it's like there. Who knows? But either way, I appreciate that. All that stuff's in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.